Good morning, folks. As I have said many times in this YouTube channel, this channel is for the sole purpose of alerting people, the general public, and all Jews as well, that the salvation of Israel is the gospel as written in the prophets and as written in the epistles. And John confirms it in Revelation 10 and verse 7. If you take the time to go and read it, the word that is missing there is gospel. They deliberately mistranslated Revelation 10 and verse 7. But before I get into the topic for today, what am I wearing? I am wearing the yellow clothing of shame and the yellow star that Christians, the Crusaders, forced the Jews to wear while they pillaged, raped, murdered, and burned them at the stake in the name of Jesus. Surely those crimes will not go unanswered. Europe's lands are filled with the blood of the innocent, and payback will be required when the 77s of Daniel 9 are finished. And I have proven using 5th grade math that the 77s of Daniel 9 are indeed finished. 62:7 from Zerubbabel's call to rebuild Jerusalem unto when Messiah was cut off. That was the 62:7s from Zerubbabel unto the suffering servant. A prince is not a suffering servant. The 1:7 from for the destruction of Jerusalem by Titus, the prince of the Romans, and 7:7s from the second call to rebuild Jerusalem on the Roman calendar, June 7, 1967. That call was made by General Shlomo Goren. And I quote, "Jerusalem, as in the days of old, Jerusalem will be rebuilt." Count 7/7s, you get 49 years. Shavuot 2016, and then cap it off with a Jubilee year, which ended Shavuot 2017. There is no more time left. And as we just witnessed, a call was made by President Donald Trump one day after the Haggai 2 verses 18 through 22 prophecy, when it begins the destruction of the nations, beginning with the 24th day of the 9th month, which means it starts at Hanukkah. And from that day forward, the nations appear to be hell-bent on reversing Donald Trump's Jerusalem proclamation, which can't be reversed. And so we have the beginnings of the overturning of the nations as written in Haggai 2 verses 18 through 22. So what I want to do today is I want to go to Isaiah 60. And I've gone over this chapter many, many times before, but it's worth digging deeper, because without understanding Isaiah 60, one can very well be easily fooled, deluded into thinking that you're going to be raptured to heaven when all the horrifying things upon the earth begin to happen. When Israel's redemption begins, and when the punishment upon the Gentiles for their sins also begins. Now, we read in several different passages that on a trumpet sound, that is when Israel is going to begin to be gathered. And it is also said with a shout. Let me show you something here, folks. All right, so it begins in Joshua 6. Okay? Joshua 6 and verse 5. You know the story of Joshua, or Yehoshua, the first Yehoshua. And this is on the seventh trumpet sound. That was on the seventh day, the seventh trumpet sound that was made, when the children of Israel surrounded the walls of Jericho. It shall come to pass that when they shall make a long blast with a ram's horn, and you shall hear the sound of the trumpet. You see, listen very carefully, because this is the exact scenario of the last trumpet in the book of Revelation. All the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend upon every man straight before him. Now, so what we have here is the last trumpet sound and a shout. Okay? First Thessalonians 4 and verse 16. And when you read this, you have to make sure you use Strong's Concordance, because the unfortunate part is they use the word Lord for the Father and also for Yehoshua. Okay. Verse 16, for the Master himself shall descend from heaven with a shout. You get that? So there's going to be a shout. Where is that shout coming from? From the archangel. With the trumpet of Jehovah. You see. So that's the last trump. Now, they say, and the dead in Messiah will rise first. Why don't they rise up all together? Because the first resurrection is the greater resurrection. Those who are the first resurrection is the resurrection of the dead. There is a difference between being resurrected from the dead and what is written next. Then when we which are alive and shall remain shall catch up. Harpazo. How? How is this going to happen? The word together does not belong there. It says at once or very quickly. Then it says together, very quickly, together. Who's going to be together? Self-emphatic. They in the cloud. A meeting with the master into the air. Now, people will say that they're going to go all meet together in the air and then go rush up back to heaven. That's a lie. It's not true. And it says, and so shall we, should be, at all times, with the Master. Now, where does Paul get this information from? He gets it from Isaiah 60. Now, there was one time when I thought, because the trumpet sounds and the vials were eerily similar. However, and I thought that the vials came with the trumpets. But I later found out that wasn't so. That during the trumpet sounds, it appears that the plagues during the trumpets were on 1/3 of the earth. You can read it. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And at one particular one, might have been 1/4. But it appears that the vials were on all the earth, with the exception the one in particular, the vial where it talks about the plague of darkness on the kingdom of the beast. Okay, so they are slightly different, but a lot the same. When you read Isaiah, when you read Isaiah 60, it appears that this happens during the plague of darkness, which is after the seventh trumpet sound. It says in verse 1, arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of Jehovah is risen upon you. Who? Zion. Where is Zion? Jerusalem. East Jerusalem. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the Gentiles. But Jehovah shall arise above you, and his glory, that means his light, shall be seen upon you. And the Gentiles shall come to your light. How are they going to do this? In kings to the brightness of your rising. In what way are they going to do this? Lift up your eyes round about. All they gather themselves together. All who? They come to you. Who? Your sons, Zion, come to you from far, and your daughters will be nursed at your side. And you shall see and flow together, speaking to the land of Zion. And your heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea is going to be overturned. That word converted does not belong there. You can read it in Strong's Concordance. Overturned. This is at the overturning of the nations. The word is in Hebrew hafak, which is 2015 in Strong's Concordance, means to overturn or overthrow. So, The nations of the Mediterranean Sea will be overthrown in those days. How will they be overthrown? We just read the plagues. Plague of darkness. Let's go to Revelation. Revelation 16 and verse 10. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast. And his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. So this is obviously in Isaiah 60, speaking of the time of the plague of darkness, the fifth vial. We just read in Isaiah 60, they are all gathering themselves together. Who? The sons and the daughters of Israel. Verse 4, lift up your eyes round about and see, all they gather themselves together. What are they going to gather themselves together to? Okay. Now, when you read verse 5, where it talks about the giant murmuring of the Mediterranean Sea, the Gentiles, Rome, the seat of the beast, is going to be overturned, and the tribute of the Gentiles shall be brought to Zion, is what it says next. Verse 6 describes, verse 5 describes taken by force. Verse 6 describes the ones who bring it voluntarily. Multitudes of camels shall cover you, the dromedaries of Midian and Ephah, all they from Sheba, the Arabian Peninsula, shall come. They will bring gold and incense, and they shall show forth the praises of Jehovah. And the folks of Qatar will be gathered together to bring tribute. And they will glorify the house of his glory. Now, here we go. Who are these who fly as a cloud or in the cloud? Now, it is good at this point in time to look at the different translations. Okay. So it says in New International Version, who are these that fly along the clouds? A little interesting way of looking at it, isn't it? Who are these who fly along the clouds like doves to their nests? New Living Translation says, and what do I see? Not who, but what do I see flying like the clouds to Israel, like doves to their nests? So now what we should do is do the same thing in verse 9. Used all the different translations to get a clearer picture of what we're talking about. New Living Translation, when asked, what are these that fly in the clouds? They are the ships from the ends of the earth, from lands that trust in me. Only thing is, I used to think that was very informative, but when you go and look in Strong's, you begin to see something. It is a reaffirmation of the children of Israel being gathered. Gathered to what? Gathered to the ships, the flying ships. Because we just saw, it is written, what or who are these that fly along the clouds? Okay? Okay, so it says, surely the coastlands will wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first. So let us look up the word wait, which comes from Kavah 6960 in Strong's Concordance. Now, it says the short definition is to wait. But what do you mean wait? How? That word wait is has a lot of different connotations. Well, the first definition is to wait or to look eagerly for. Obvious, right? Let us go to the second one. Means to lie in wait. That kind of has a negative connotation. That is to lie in wait, to ambush. But what about the third one? To linger for, to be collected. To be collected? Check this out. To be collected of nations, of waters, so probably of ships. And what scripture is it pointing to? Isaiah 60, verse 9. So there you have it, folks. They are waiting. The people of Israel that are in the farthest reaches of the earth, beyond the sea, are waiting to be collected by the ships. So this affirms what is written in Isaiah 60, and I believe it was verse 4. Yes, where the children of Israel are gathering themselves together. Right there in verse 9 it says, the meaning there is to be gathered in the ships of Tarshish first. And I have pointed out many, many times, and you can go and do your own research and find out for yourself that the ships of Tarshish traversed the Atlantic. Tarshish was a city on the Atlantic off the coast of Portugal. Bring your sons from afar, their silver and their gold with them. They will not come empty-handed. They will not come empty-handed like the Jews were forced to come to Israel empty-handed when they were kicked out of Iraq, Egypt, Iran, Lebanon, Syria, Turkey, etc. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia in the 1940s, late 1940s. Those came empty-handed. These will not come empty-handed. It will be just like in the days of Egypt, when the people of those lands will give them everything that they need and more to just get out. Why? Because not only did plagues come down during the trumpet sounds, But this right here, Isaiah 60, is happening during the fifth vial. More plagues. And the plague of darkness on the kingdom of the beast. Unto the name of Jehovah your Elohim, to the Holy One of Israel, because he has glorified you. And the sons of strangers shall build up your walls, and their kings will minister unto you. For in my wrath have I smote you, but in my favor I had mercy on you. Therefore your gates will be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, so that men may bring in the wealth of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. What are the kings going to be doing? Some of them will be brought to justice. Says in Isaiah, same prophet, that many of these kings will be imprisoned for many days before they are going to be put on trial. Or maybe they were already put on trial and maybe they will have to face execution for their crimes against Israel. Verse 12, for the nation and the kingdom that will not serve you shall perish. Yes, all those nations shall be utterly wasted. Verse 14, the sons of them. The sons of them, the following generations of them that afflicted you. That means Germany, Rome. What? These are Christian nations, are they not? Yes! These Christian nations in Europe that afflicted Israel, they are the ones that are going to come bow down at the soles of Israel's feet. Why? Because it is them who worship at the synagogue of Satan. Who was the murderer from the beginning? And who is it that followed in the ways of the murderer from the beginning? By their fruits you shall know them. They worship at the synagogue of Satan, and for that reason they are going to come bowing down, and all they despise you shall bow them down at the soles of your feet, and they shall call you the city of Jehovah, the Zion of the Holy One of Christianity. That's not what it says. Israel. And you have these Christians today cursing Israel every day with the words that come out of their mouth, proving they worship at the synagogue of Satan, while they claim that the Jews worship at the synagogue of Satan. Verse 15, whereas you have been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through you, I will make you an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations. You shall also suck the milk of the Gentiles, and shall suck the breast of kings, and you shall know that I am Jehovah, am your Savior and your Redeemer, the mighty one of the Christians, the mighty one of Jacob. In exchange for brass, I will give you gold. In exchange for iron, I will bring you silver. In exchange for wood, I will bring you brass. and for stones iron, and I will make your officers, your police officers, peaceful, and your exactors, creditors, tax collectors, whatever, will be righteous. Violence shall no more be heard in your land, wasting nor destruction within your borders, but you shall call your walls salvation and your gates praise. The sun shall no more light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give night unto you, but Jehovah shall be unto you your everlasting light, and your Elohim your glory. Your, figuratively speaking, your sun shall never go down, neither shall your moon withdraw itself, for Jehovah shall be your everlasting light, and the days of your mourning shall be ended completely. All your people of Israel shall be righteous, not some of them, all of them, and they shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, Jehovah, will hasten it in his time. Now, so do you still believe in the rapture? Well, we just read that people will be flying along the clouds in ships. They will be gathered in these ships from far across the sea. The ships of Tarshish, the ships of the Atlantic, will take the lead in gathering these people up, loading them up on flying ships, airliners, and bringing them to the Holy Land when the vials are being poured out after the last trumpet sounds. Okay? Matthew 24, verse 31. After the 77s are finished upon Israel, after Israel's tribulation is finished, verse 29, shall the sun and moon be darkened? Shall the sun be dark, and the moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall from heaven. We see the stars falling from heaven at the sixth seal. And the powers of heaven be shaken. And then, consecutively, shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. You won't see the Son of Man yet, but the sign. There is a sign. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud of heaven with power and great glory, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other. Where? The disciples said, "Where, Lord, where?" And he says, "Where the vultures are gathered, that's where the dead carcass is going to be." You can read in Ezekiel 39, and you can find out where that is. It is the mountains of Israel. That is where Lord, where? Who are the elect? Isaiah 45 makes it very clear who the elect are. All you have to do, just Google it. You don't even have to use a Bible search. Just Google it. Israel, mine elect. Israel, mine, M-I-N-E, elect. And you will come to Isaiah 45. And verse 4, for Jacob my servant's sake, and Israel my elect, I have called you by your name, I have surnamed you, although you have not known me. That doesn't mean that Israel is not, or how do I put this? Just because Israel has not known Jehovah, that doesn't mean that Israel is not Jehovah's elect. Israel is Jehovah's elect. Paul said in Romans 11 that the gifts and the calling, I called you by your name, I have surnamed you, though you have not known me. And he says Israel's mine elect. Paul said in Romans 11 that the calling and the gifts of Jehovah cannot be changed. Romans 11. In verse 28, as concerning the gospel, he's talking to the Romans, they are enemies for your sakes. But as touching the election, they are the beloved for the patriarchs' sakes, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So they are the elect. Paul confirms it. Why? He answers in verse 29, because the gifts and the calling of Jehovah cannot be changed. For as you Romans in times past have not believed, yet you have now. Notice he said now, because he points out in Thessalonians that a little later it was going to be taken away from them. So the ones he was speaking to at that particular point in time were given mercy because of Israel's unbelief. Verse 31, even so have these Israel also now not believed, that because Jehovah had mercy on the Gentiles, who one time didn't believe either, that he may also have mercy on them. For Jehovah, verse 32, has concluded all in unbelief, that he might have mercy upon all. Which is why the Gentiles, especially the Romans, but all the Gentiles, are in grave danger right now. Why? Because as I mentioned in the very beginning of this video, they persecuted. They forced the Jews to wear the clothing, the yellow clothing of shame. They forced the Jews to wear the yellow star while they pillaged, raped, murdered, burned at the stake those Jews whom they refused to have mercy on. And so, that is why mercy is going to be taken away from the Gentiles when Jehovah shall have mercy upon Israel. The Gentiles did not have to be merciless, did not have to follow that man who calls himself Father, did not have to follow him in his ways, but they chose to reject the truth and they violated, they broke the everlasting covenant. Isaiah 24 and verse 5. The everlasting covenant is the new covenant. What is the new covenant? Read Jeremiah 31 verses 31 through 34. That is the new covenant. That is the everlasting covenant. But the world broke that covenant. When the world promised the Jews all the land of Palestine and reneged and reneged and reneged. Now the whole world is against the United States and Guatemala for speaking the truth about Jerusalem. Yes, the world is in violation of the everlasting covenant. So, Isaiah 24 is next. And they will be glorifying, the children of Israel will be glorifying the name of Jehovah, the Elohim of Israel, in the coastlands of the sea, while the lands are on fire. Verse 15 of Isaiah 24, read it. Verse 21, and it shall come to pass in that day that Jehovah shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. And they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and they shall be shut up in prison, and after many days they shall be visited. Verse 23, and the sun and the moon shall be confounded, and the sun ashamed, when Jehovah of hosts shall reign in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and before Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob gloriously. There is no excuse, folks, for rejecting the truth. None whatsoever. However, the rejection of the truth is what European Christianity has embraced, and therefore Isaiah 24 shall fall upon them when Zion rises again. And the call that Donald John Trump made on Hanukkah, in my opinion, begins this whole scenario of bringing down the nations, overthrowing the nations as written in Haggai, chapter 2, verses 18 through 22, and Zion's rising, Isaiah 60, beginning in verse 1. No, the living will not be raptured. The living will have to jump on airplanes, gather themselves together, jump on the airliners, and follow where the resurrection of the dead, follow them over to the mountains of Israel. You can choose to believe the delusion that your paid preachers, the hirelings, have taught you, or you can look for the truth yourself. That is entirely up to you. Why am I doing this? I am doing this to testify that Israel shall be saved. It is the gospel. It is the whole gospel and nothing but the gospel. And the Gentiles have rejected the gospel, unfortunately, and so I'm just pointing out that what's going to happen as a result. So you can take it or leave it, whatever you choose to do, but it's not going to change anything. It's going to happen as written in the prophets and in the epistles.